Hello, everyone. Today, we would love to begin with watching another video about today's guest. So please enjoy.
We will prepare for 37 days.
For 21 days.
For 21 days.
For 21 days.
This rain.
Again with the food. Again with the blanket. Again. I haven't even been only been to not even a day on earth, and honestly.
The best thing I like is seeing four generations together and so much caring, and it reminded me of my own wife's family, her mother's mother, and then my daughter, and it was so emotional.
I would very much like that. I mean, this was great, and it's nice to come and listen to the music and experience and support the local artists and things too.
Yeah, I am already getting emotional about this, but well, let's begin. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeeyoung Kim, and welcome to Korean Cultural Society of Boston's New Music Symposium. I'm serving as the curator of this show, and today I am really excited to have Dr. Jeeyoung Kim with us. Dr. Jiyong Kim was critically acclaimed as efficient and attractive calling card by the New York Times, and there was no mistaking the elegance and poignancy of this music by the San Francisco Chronicle. Her music harmonizes the unique cultural aspects from Eastern and Western traditions. Dr. Jeeyoung Kim has received numerous commissions, including Tryst, an ancient bell from Yo-Yo Ma's Silk Road Ensemble for their worldwide tour, and opera from My Mother's Mother from Houston Grand Opera. Her music has been performed by Korean Broadcasting System KBS Orchestra, Chanticleer, the Seattle Symphony, Czech National Symphony Orchestra, KBS Korean Traditional Music Orchestra, Empire State Youth Orchestra, Dale Warland Singers, De Esprit in Netherlands, music at the anthology as known as MATA, led by Philip Glass, Azure Ensemble, Ethos Percussion Group, the American Composers Forum, Wooman Dongseok Kang, and at a Seoul Spring Festival and Contemporary Music Ensemble of Korea, among many others. Dr. Jeeyoung Kim has been awarded and recognized from the National Endowment for the Arts, International Alliance for Women in Music, National Association of Composers USA, as known as NACUSA, Meet the Composer, American Music Center, Jerome Foundation, also among others. she received her degrees from Yonsei University, Indiana University, and Yale University, where she received her doctorate. And she also had an extra research activities at Harvard University with composing and researching Asian traditional music with the Bunting Fellowship given. And if you would love to know more of her music, you can stay here, and you can also visit her website, jiyoungkim.squarespace.com. And without further ado, let's please join me in welcoming Dr. Jeeyoung Kim.
Hello, everyone. Hi, can you see me? Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I'd like to begin by thanking the Korean Cultural Society of Boston and Professor Taek-soo Kim for making this lecture possible. And also, I'd like to thank all of you to listen to my music on Saturday evening. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I would like to start with a brief introduction on Korean music heritage regarding how ancient Koreans thought about music historically, followed by how it affects my music and philosophy, and my personal background a little bit, and then I'll share some of my composition. How ancient Koreans thought about music historically. There are several references on music throughout Korean history, such as the Three Kingdoms of Korea. In Korean, it's 삼국사기 악지, written in 1145. The History of Goryeo, in Korean, it's 고려사 악지, written in 1454. And the Heritage of the Three States, in Korean, it's 삼국유사, written in 1281. But 악학괴범, which was written in 1493 by scholar Sung Hyun under the King Sejong, is the standard book on Korean music and instruments because it shows the philosophy of music and literature, as well as instruments, clothing, ceremonies, and so on. According to this book, music exudes from nature. The sound is already in nature from heaven. Music begins from emptiness and forms its shape in nature. It moves the heart of people and transforms itself through the veins into spirit. If you feel anger, the sound feels harsh and penetrating. If you feel sad, the sound feels deflated. If you are happy, the sound feels exciting. The king has to govern many different kinds of people who each have their own sound, so the country will be united. Good music is the way to harmonize all different kinds of people. There are two roles of music in Asia. One is for a human being to have a harmonized life, and the other is to make our society harmonious. The ultimate goal of music is to cultivate one's mind. Art does not exist for its own sake, but ethical purpose. Music permeates the universe already. So I attempt to draw and shape this music by using the sensitivity of my heart and senses. In Asia, people see human beings as simply a part of nature's landscape and believe that keeping in step with nature is very important. Historically, being a composer was never a real profession in Asia. Consequently, a composer having his or her own voice is not a natural thing in Asian culture. Music in Asia is understood as having an interconnectedness with the sound, the human mind, and society. Consequently, a composer having her own voice is not a natural thing in Asian culture. Music in Asia is understood as having an interconnected with the sound, the human mind, the society, according to the Chinese literature called Yueji, record of music. In Asia, making a work of art is a process of discovering what's already there. The great artists make good harmony, helpful to society. I would like to be true to this philosophy so that my music will make a positive impact to those who listen. Ironically, I live far from my homeland. The better I understand my own culture and also enjoy the different culture I am living in now. With this aspect, I am oftentimes inspired by Korean culture and literature to write my music. Choosing instruments, register, color, timbre, and forms are deeply related to this aspect. My music shows Korean traditional musical influence and philosophy. Now I'd like to talk about my background a little bit. When I was 4, I began to go to the Korean Traditional Dance Institute in my town, and I loved it. I also learned the Korean traditional dance with traditional music until 5th grade. I also learned to play the piano at the same time. This is the only picture I could find here. I think maybe when I was 5. So I came to America after I graduated from college. I went from a big city, Seoul, to cornfield, Bloomington, Indiana. And that was a big culture shock. In addition, going to the student recitals was eye-opening. Everyone had a freedom to write different kinds of music. When I was at college in Korea, classical contemporary composers were supposed to write European dissonant contemporary music. And I also wrote that kind of music. I wanted to find my own voice when I composed. Professor Fred Fox was my teacher back then. And when I talked about my culture shock and finding my own voice, he said I should listen to my natural inner voice. I could remember the Korean traditional music I danced with when I was young and wanted to explore it in my music. I also called Lee Sang-yoon, a Korean composer in Germany, because I wanted to study with him. He wasn't feeling well, so he couldn't teach me, but told me on the phone saying that composing something which could move people is the most important thing. These are the lessons I learned that influenced my composition. Now I'd like to share several pieces of mine to show how Korean heritage shaped and influenced my composition. First piece is called Longing Under the Moon. This piece was inspired by an ancient Korean poem, 정읍사, which was written between BC 18 to AD 663. In Korea, jidar, 가야금, which you see here, it has been considered to be a feminine instrument. It often appears in Korean folktales as an expression of longing for a distant lover. In this piece, a woman is sitting alone in the moonlight, waiting for her lover to return from his journey. So she looks up the moon and asks the moon to watch over her lover. She plays to the 가야금, and the moon joins her nocturne. So in this piece, the violin has the moon role, while the harp has the woman's role. Hope you enjoy this piece. I'll play a little bit. Thank you. And the next piece I would like to share is a choir piece. It's a Whose Are the Other Two for a cappella choir. This was inspired by an ancient Korean poem called Cheoyongga, which was written in the 9th century. The original title is a Cheoyongga, and the Cheoyong is the son of sea dragon who married a beautiful woman. One night, an evil spirit transformed itself into a man and lay with his lovely wife. Returning home, Cheoyong found them lying together in his bed. He was very upset, of course, and if it happened in Western country, he will react differently. However, instead of getting angry, he danced and sang to this poem so that the evil spirit would withdraw, which is, I don't understand. So anyway, so I wrote music, and this was commissioned and sang by Adele Warland singers. Okay, you heard until the moment Cheoyong found out that there are 4 legs on the bed. Okay, next piece I would like to share is Trist. This piece was commissioned by the Silk Road Ensemble, which was led by Yo-Yo Ma. I was again inspired by poems written in around 1591 by Jeong and Jin-ok. When I received this commission to write for Silk Road, I actually thought about what would be the best to celebrate the Silk Road, and I thought about love. So I was researching love poems, and then I found this lovely story. You know, Jeong was a very famous scholar, and he was a writer also, but he was in exile and living in a small village, Gange, when he wrote this poem. And there was a Jin-ok. She was a giseng, a combination of professional entertainer, performing artist, and courtesan. His name, Jeong means pure iron, while her name, Jin-ok, means true jade. So what happened was, one night, suddenly Miss Jin-ok interrupted Mr. Chung, and she introduced, wait, I have to go to the next one. Yeah. Oh, I have, okay, this is a picture of Yo-Yo Ma playing at, I think it's Carnegie. So anyway, one night, suddenly Miss Jin-ok interrupted Mr. Chung, and she introduced herself, told Mr. Chung that she admired his literature, and then she would like to share her passion for the art with him. And after she performed Gayagum for him, he asked her to respond to a short poem that he had written. You can see the poems, which is actually translated from an old Korean, so it might be a little awkward, but I will read this anyway. So Jeongcheol wrote, Jade. We were told Jade had arrived again. Sure, I remember fake Jade, but your close, cold surface told me Jade. Again, that was pure and real. This time, I will use a skin awl, like knife. Of such breath, you will be thrusted. After this poem, Jinok responded immediately with this poem. We were told iron had arrived again. Sure, I remember brittle pig iron, but your close, cold surface told me iron. Again, that was hammered and annealed. This time, I will use a furnace of earth bellows. Of such breath, you will not withstand the fire. So we're sure that they tested their instrument very well that night. So in this piece, the cello represent Mr. Chung, the energy yang. The 가야금 is the Chinook, and then oboe is a mediator. So I'll play some excerpts. So here, actually, cello tap the instrument to imitate the jango sound. So Yo-Yo had to bring a cheap cello actually to play because he didn't want to tap very, very expensive cello. And I totally understood, but his performance was still really good. Now you're going to hear some of the 가야금 병창 sound. Let's see.
두
goes on, and then I'll play just a little bit like at the end. Okay, thank you. No questions so far?
So it's great that you had such a deep research on the philosophy of this type of music, and you are also incorporating lots of texts, poems, and other things from the Korean tradition and heritage. And at the same time, you also use Korean instruments. But I feel there's just more than that. I feel like there are certain rhythmic patterns or some elements that, even though they are so different from one another, I feel there is some common thread with respect to musical characters. Could you elaborate some elements you're using? Are they related to Korean traditional music?
I think it just comes naturally when I think about melody or harmony or even the structure of the music. I like the way the Korean music usually starts really small, and then it accumulates the energy to go on and on and on, and then so later it has a really big bang, and then release all this energy away at the end. And I think that I feel really comfortable. So, and instruments, the way they play, sometimes it bend the sound, the tones, or the timbres, or harmonies, and everything. I think what I do, I feel very comfortable when I do it, and I also want to challenge myself with the things I learned here. So I think it's just all melting pot, maybe in me.
I see. Wow, that's great. So everything is more or less organically happening in your music, I would put. Also, what about like a melodic elements? Are there something that you intentionally repeat to imitate some Korean music, or is it also just a part of your embracing Korean heritage or idea naturally?
Melodic line. I think it comes naturally from me. Although I think sometimes I repeat a lot. I think that repeat, but every time I add something or delete something, or I kind of play with it so slightly. But I think also heterophony is something I feel also comfortable, and which is maybe not the standard in Western music. So which is a little different way of making the whole construction to go to develop. So it's a little different way of developing the music. So
I
the
see.
melody, yes, the melody, from the melody, it actually also indicates the harmony, and also it could also influence the whole form of the music, something like that. Yeah.
I see. We have one question from Dr. Jeeyoung Kim here. Do you have any piece with classical style voices as opposed to Korean traditionally trained in Korean way? So we watched one piece for just Western voices in a choral setting, and then we had a piece for a voice that is trained in Korean traditional way, and then would come with other Western instruments, so-called. Have you combined in different way, for example, like Korean traditional instruments with Western singing tradition?
Korean traditional singing with
Oh, the other way, Korean traditional instruments with Western voice.
Oh, later I will play Korean traditional orchestra piece, and they all play Korean traditional instruments, but it's an like orchestra piece. So their tuning is actually, it's Western way of tuning, and they play to make chord. So it maybe that'll be the way that maybe that's the piece you'll hear later to answer that question. Okay.
One more question with respect to the instrumentation. Do you usually choose your own instrumentation when you write music?
Sometimes when I have freedom, yes. And sometimes the commissioners let me know what instruments are available, or what instruments I can choose from. So it varies, depending on the commissions.
I was very intrigued by the combination of oboe, kayagum, and of course singing, and plus cello. Was it your own choice or was it given?
Yes, when they commissioned me, they said it has to be between 3 to 5, and yo-yo has to include, so always cello, and then they wanted to have Korean instruments, and then I can choose any other instruments like Western instruments. So I chose 3.
Yeah, I thought it worked really, really well with respect to timbre and everything. Yeah. Thank you for answering. If you have any question, please feel free to put in the chat box, or we will also have a Q&A session at the end. But let's, shall we resume to your own presentation?
Oh, the next piece I would like to share is called Heroes. I was commissioned to write a 2002 Korean-Japan World Cup fanfare, and one of the city was Suwon, and they asked me to write a fanfare. So I used a Korean folk song called Arirang Mokdong, which is translated as Shepherd Arirang. So the song you can hear usually at the sports event to encourage the players and fans. So the Arirang actually means a longing for lover, echoes, or joy. So a lot of meanings in here. So I use this yeah 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 yeah. So that you will hear it all the time here. No, I don't know what happened.
You may just click it again and then it should work.
Okay, so thank you for listening to this. And the next piece I'd like to share is called Miserere. This was commissioned by Suwon Civic Choral for their US tour and then premiered at the Lincoln Center. The text is from Psalms 51, verse 1, 14, and 15 in Latin. In the beginning of the piece, I used Tibetan bowls to produce bell sound, which was considered as heaven sound in Korea. There are two solos in this piece, and they sang in the style of Korean traditional singing called 정가. Hope you enjoy. it goes like this, and then I'll maybe play at the end a little bit. Thank you. Okay, I think there's some questions, or should I just go on?
Let's go on for now, and then after next piece, we will have another brief pause and Q&A.
Okay, the next piece I would like to share is called Lullaby of the Waves for string orchestra. In April 2014, there was a very, very sad thing happened. Seoul ferry disaster. A lot of high school, 250 high school students passed away due to a very, very sad happen. So I wanted to, at that time I had a commission to write for New York classical players. And I wanted to write a piece to actually dedicate to comfort the souls and the family. So this piece has 3 sections. First is elegy, and second is lullaby, and third is hope. And in the elegy, it begins with a lyrical melody, which resembles a traditional Korean singing style as it comforts the lost souls. So the melodic lines moves like waves and incorporate rhythmic music that represents the vibrant lives of young victims. And in the second part, lullaby includes a very famous Korean lullaby, 섬집 아기, translated into a baby in a seashore cottage, in which a baby falls asleep listening to waves and winds, while the mother, 해녀, it's a female diver, went to collect oysters in the sea. And the third part, hope, is the compilation of musical elements representing the foundation of our hope for overcoming the waves of grief, and ends with a humming sound produced by high notes of violins, which represents a child's happy and relaxed way of humming. So let's hear it. And the second part, which includes the Korean children's lullaby, I'll play from there. And then the third part is going. Thank you. So what's the questions, or should I go on?
Sure. Let's why don't we have a little bit of a brief Q&A session now before we move on to the next piece. So for now, on Facebook, there are some comments. Unmuha said, "Heroes fanfare for orchestra is really awesome," and Astrina Rasias says, "Beautiful and hello from Montreal." And Unmuha also has the question about the choral piece. What does miserere mean? Could you explain a bit?
What do you mean, Mr. That's I think it is a part of. Oh, maybe he's not miserere with like the comfort our soul, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think so. And that's actually part of the, how can I say, the service, the Christian service, and both Catholic or Christian church use when they have the service. I think they use miserere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that made me wonder about why you chose specifically a text in Latin. and while you're also using the Tibetan bowl and Korean singing styles. So it's a really interesting combination, and the result is very effective, I think, but I would love to know more about the piece though.
Okay, first of all, the reason I use the Tibetan bowl is it's easy to carry because they flew to US to perform, and I didn't want to want them to rent like a glockenspiel or any kind of instrument, and I think Tibetan bowl was actually easy to carry, and so I went to a market to find the right tune when when they do it. So I wanted to find the right tune to use it, but also bell sound is considered as a heaven sound in Korea. So I wanted to use that bell sound to show that this piece is dedicated to the God. So that's why I use that. And what was the first question? I forgot.
So why did you choose the text? Yes.
Right. I just wanted to challenge myself, and they're gonna tour around, and I wanted to actually write something not in English, not in Korean, and Latin was the text. So it was a simple reason. Yes.
Okay. And you, when you explained about the piece, you also mentioned Jongga, right? That's a different style of Korean
Right.
singing, and then that sounds quite different from what I heard from the piece, chamber piece in the Trist, the chamber piece. There was a
Right.
singing as well. It's also Korean, I assume Korean traditional style, but that is rather different from the other one. Could you elaborate a bit about the difference?
Well, I don't think we have much time, but Jongga is totally different from Pansori style. So I wanted to try different way to approach. And actually, one of the reasons I chose the Jongga style was they're all trained, Western trained vocalists, and for them to actually explore Pansori was too much. And actually, I thought about this. So I thought maybe for Jongga is something they can actually try. And so actually, I think they hired a Jongga teacher, and they had some lessons to explore that they can sing in the style of Jongga. So that was one of the reasons I chose Jongga, but also I love Jongga too. So that's very different kinds of Jongga. If you want to study more, I think you should really go for it. I don't think I can explain here a lot about that. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's great. That's beautiful, and also great story. One more question. I think this would also lead us to your next piece, which I cannot wait for, because these three pieces we just listened to show, I think, a lot more influence than just Korean traditional music. So would you mind identifying some of other musical influences to your music, in addition to Korean traditional music you studied? Because I hear some sort of classical music influence and some sort of jazz or pop commercial sound as well, and yeah, so it's a very interesting mixture, and I just wanted to make sure I am getting it correct.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I am also, I love to challenge myself and explore different kinds of music as well. So I also use like a jazz kind of thing in my opera when the daughter sing about the frustration. And also I studied some jazz chords and sound. And not only jazz, and I also studied some of the Indian music, gamelan music, all kinds of different kinds of music, even like African rhythm a little bit, because it's also very interesting. So I explore this and that in my music. I think you have a good ear.
Thank you.
So
So shall we move on to the opera then?
Can I just play one more piece, just a little bit, because I
Sure,
prepared.
yes, please,
This
yeah.
is because I maybe show the variety of piece. This is for Korean traditional orchestra. This it's called Pinari, so maybe a little bit. I don't think we have much time. I just want to jump to the opera. This binari means wishing you a good luck. So I used 경기 도단꽃, which is a shamanistic rhythmic pattern, 장단, and the melody a little bit. So I incorporate that with my own composition as well. So I kind of like woven these two things together, like a Western kind of music with Korean traditional shamanistic rhythmic patterns and the melody as well. So, but I think I'll jump to the opera. So the opera, I was really happy to write this piece. This piece is called From My Mother's Mother. Maybe you may heard in the beginning of this session. This was commissioned by Houston Grand Opera, and when I was when I received this commission, actually the director flew to New York to meet me, and then she said the Great Opera has to come. The story has to come from a composer. So I said, I thought the story is given to me and I just compose. And she said, no, you have, the story has to come from you. And also, she also said, majority of the operas are about male. It's about with either war or historical events or something. It's all oriented, like man oriented. And she wanted to find like a story, like female story, and something, maybe if you can incorporate your tradition, that might be good too. So we start talking about a story of my life, and then I talked about this miyakuk, and then she thought, oh, that's great. And so that's how this came. And the story is like this. There are 4 generations, and they are a Korean American family, and there's a story about miyakuk. We all know miyakuk is when a woman gave birth to a baby, they eat. Also, Korean eat the miyakuk, which you see in this picture on birthdays. So the grandmother and mother prepares the miyakuk and bring it to the granddaughter's hospital. But granddaughter, she married to a white guy, and she was born in America, and she grew up in America. She's Korean American, but she's actually more like a white, and she never liked miyakuk, which my daughter doesn't like miyakuk either. So she actually refused to eat the miyakuk, and then there's a story begins. So let's find out what's gonna happen. So let's start to listen to this piece.
Would you make a full screen when we watch the opera?
Yes, okay.
That would be great.
Okay, so I will play. So in the beginning, grandma sings about the seaweed soup. So let's. Oh, wait. I have to.
Play, yes. Thank you.
No problem. So she's talking about the miyakuk, the and then the three generations come in. The scene one is at the kitchen. The grandmother and mother prepares the soup. Keeps talking about what you should do and what you shouldn't do about how to make the miyeokguk, and also she talks about for 21 days the mother has to keep warm. Her body has to be warm, but the grandmother doesn't feel well, so she couldn't go to the hospital. So the mother brings brings the seaweed soup to the hospital. So let's see how she reacts. So it's going to be at the hospital. So she brings it to the hospital.
Hello, Moni. How was the drive? Here, let me help you with these.
Hi, Jensen, thank you.
Can I get you anything, oh, Moni?
Some water, please. With noise and the same for Soyan. Also, Jensen, thank you. Why are you not wearing the sweater I bought yesterday for you? Hello to you, Tama. Say hello to your great mother, Gina. This is your harmony. Hello, harmony. Where's my harmony today? She's resting her eyes. Julian, you know your body's cold after having a baby.
So her mother keeps telling her daughter, Suyeon, that she has to wear warm clothes and she has to keep eating the miyeokguk. So Suyeon doesn't like the miyeokguk and she feels really hot, and she said that she's not hungry, she doesn't want to eat miyeokguk, and then her mom asked why, and she said that she ate scone and the frozen yogurt, and like her mom was like, what? You are not supposed to eat this like very cold food, it's gonna ruin your body. And there's like a big quarrel going on, and then she leaves, and then as soon as her mother leaves, and then she's so frustrated, and she shows her frustration. Let's listen here. So her mother leaves, and please eat the miyoku.
Again with the soup.
Again with the soup. Again with the blanket. Again. I have to even been eat only. Not even a damn half of honesty. I don't know why she's so surprised. I've hated the sauce since I was a kid. Every year on my birthday, how much she listens. Now she acts like I've committed some horrible crime. Because I ate one song, one is gone for birthday.
And some froyo.
I think I'm a baby. What was I supposed to do? In the yard.
You know it's not so bad. It's kinda like miso soup, right?
It's not about the song dancing and dancing.
So frustrated because she thinks that her mother just accuse her not eating miyeokguk, and ask her to wear like all these heavy clothes or blanket, and she doesn't like, and she's so frustrated. But actually, unfortunately, the mother heard all of this, and then the next scene 3, the mother talks about her memory about eating miyeokguk when she was young, when she had a birthday, and also she talks about there's a story actually which is written in Korean ancient book. It is called actually 오주연 문장 전산고. This was written in Lee Dynasty in Joseon, and this is about a whale. Actually, it's like a Pinocchio story, but a fisherman was eaten by a whale, and the fisherman inside the whale, he found all the miyeok inside the whale, and actually he saw the bad blood turn into a really clear one. So he was really excited, and he talked about it, and that was written in Korean old ancient book. So the mother talks about all this. Fisherman's story. She saw the fisherman, what the fisherman saw in the whales inside. The next scene is a very sad scene because her grandmother suddenly passed away, and they are so sad.
Diaz boy from across the street.
The daughter,
Rolling the trash bin back up the driveway.
So the next.
Oh,
Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow. Yeah, that was indeed moving story and music and the performance. As
Thank you.
Jeeyoung Kim said, beautiful aria. The singer is fabulous. And Janet Kim also said, Dr. Kim's music is simply mesmerizing, especially in person, as I have had chance to listen to it in person a few times. I absolutely love the harmony of the Eastern and Western elements, which I didn't know could be woven so beautifully. And
Thank you.
Daniel Song Jong-hoon says, wonderful. So I would love to invite for some questions as you have. And while I'm waiting for the questions, I would love to say, you mentioned about the quote from Lee Sang-yoon, writing music that moves people, and I think you are doing it wonderfully already. I think even though you didn't really had a chance to work with him, somehow you inherited or his spirit in some way.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just it resonates with me so much, and I have tried to set texts in English with Korean sentiment and Korean music, like a melody, for example, and then that was quite challenging when I try to do so, because the the languages have different accents, different syllable structures, and how did you figure out how to work on this
Right.
complexity? Yeah.
Right. The language and music, they are very, very close. And it, of course, there's a big, such a strong relationship. You know, like, for example, the Hungarian composers like Bartók, you know, he also studied a lot about the linguistics to also for his own music as well. So I think there is a big important influence, and I think for me it just came naturally so far. I'm sorry to say that, but yeah, I actually, when I went to Indiana, I felt like you know, my friends like in composition department who grew up playing in like a marching band, they listen different music, and that they play different instruments, and that they also hear that kind of marching band 4/4, and it also shows in the music, and they have, you know, such a different language than what how I grew up. So I think it's very natural, and that's why I think it's beautiful. Like, you know, music is beautiful, and the human being are also beautiful. I think it's very natural. Yeah.
Yeah. As disappointing as it would be, because you know I wanted to get the secret, but I think that makes totally sense. That, you know, it just comes natural.
Hey, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and if anyone else has some question, please feel free to unmute yourself and say something to Dr. Jiyong Kim. We have a record number of Zoom participants today. I am really, really excited, and
Thank you.
yeah, glad to see how many people are interested in your music and music by Korean composers and music based on Korean traditional music. But yes, please don't be shy, or you are welcome to write in the chat room. And we have on Facebook, Nimsi Gera says it's so beautiful, and
Thank
also Unmuha says, I enjoyed this opera very much. Thank you for the great presentation you did.
Oh, thank you. You can watch the full or opera on YouTube. I yes, I uploaded it.
Yes, so feel free to visit the website, Dr. Jiyong Kim's website, and her YouTube channel as well. All the pieces you watched today are also available there. And so what are you working on now? What's the next step for you?
I have several pieces to write. It hasn't been really productive so far because of pandemic, but I have to write an opera on it, orchestra piece for a symphony song, and art song, and also a piano trio. So, but because of this pandemic, I don't know actually when you know, everything will be performed yet. But I still have to write those things. I'm very thankful.
That's great. Okay. Anyone else has any question? Oh, okay. We have. Oh, wow. This is a deep question. So Dr. Jeeyoung Kim also asks you, what would you like to be remembered in 10 years?
What do you mean? After 10 years?
Yeah, from now on. Yeah, from now on. Like after, yeah.
Probably I'll keep writing, and I would like to explore more. Also, I think I would like to keep doing what I'm doing, hopefully, and healthy, and I want to see more good music to impact the society. So yes, it'll be good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, please stay healthy. I would love to
Right.
get more music from you, and that would be
thank
a great contribution to the community, the larger community, I think. I would love to be mindful of our time as it is approaching 8:30. So next week we would have another guest. Next week will be actually the last one in this season, and this is Jiyong Kim, who also plays the gamungo and composes. It would be another amazing and inspiring lecture. And please join me in thanking Dr. Jeeyoung Kim for the wonderful presentation and sharing her beautiful and touching music. And I would love to also thank everyone who joined us today, and the Korean Cultural Society of Boston for hosting us. And until next time, please stay safe and stay musical.